In November of 1997, Imagineer released the first pair of Medarot games. While they had their share of flaws, they performed well enough in terms of sales to not drop the franchise. A few months later came these cynical cash grabs. In May of 1999, they received an updated port for the WonderSwan handheld. But at the same time, Medarot 2, a sequel to the very first manga series, began its serialization in Comic Bonbon. It was at this point that the next generation of Medarot got started. On the 2nd of July of 1999, an anime adaptation began airing on TV. It had 52 episodes and lasted until June of 2000, the same month in which the Medarot 2 manga also ended. But what we're taking a look at today is none of those. On the 23rd of July of 1999, exactly 3 weeks after the anime's first episode, a true sequel to the original game was released. It was once again developed by Natsume and published by Imagineer, and was released in 2 versions, Kabuto and Kuwagata. The first generation had Hikaru Agata, a little boy who wasn't interested in the little robots. However, due to the vicissitudes of fate, he acquired his own Medabot and traveled to various places. His journey eventually led him to compete in an international tournament and foil the evil Robo Gang's plans. 7 years have passed since then, and the spotlight now falls on Iki Tenryu, a little boy who is greatly interested in the little robots. If you have any prior experience with the franchise, you will probably be familiar with the new characters. Not only did the anime get licensed for Western audiences, but the game also eventually got a remake for the Game Boy Advance called Medarot 2 Core, which was released outside Japan as Medabots Metabi and Rokusho versions. There was also an unusual situation with the game Medarot G. Technically, it was never released outside Japan. However, the Western world got its own exclusive version called Medabots AX. While G featured the cast of Medarot 5, AX was changed to feature Iki and his friends, but the gameplay remained the same. The game starts with Iki visiting the Medabot laboratory. The professor is too busy with work to talk with him, so he suggests asking his granddaughter. After a dispute with this sore loser, she lets Iki inside her room and shows him some brand new unreleased models. Lucky you. After this, he rushes back home to watch Medabots Weekly, which shows the traditional assembly sequence. His joy is short-lived, however, as his mom rushes in, gives him 5,000 yen and instructs him to go buy some ingredients. Being the good boy that he is, he heads to the local supermarket. Little did he know that his life was about to change. Inside, you see the previous game's protagonist, Hikaru— no wait, I'm sorry, I mean Henry. When Medarot got localized, there are quite a number of name changes. Most of them aren't important, and Medarot 2's plot is standalone and requires no knowledge of the previous game. I just wanted to point that out, because Hikaru appears throughout the game at various points, and there are a few continuity nods that are lost with the name change. He has grown during these past 7 years, and now the old champion and strongest meta fighter in the world is a lowly store clerk getting lambasted by his boss for ordering some expensive parts. Time hasn't been kind to Hikaru Agata. Why? What happened to you? He more or less forces these parts into Iki's hands, exchanging them for almost all his money. Mom isn't very happy when he comes back home without the ingredients. But hey, at least you have a Medabot now. Except there's no medal, so it doesn't move. But have no fear, Phantom Renegade is here. This suspicious man who looks like he belongs in a CIA blacklist shows up when Iki's father is heading home from work and entrusts him with a medal for his son. How convenient. Now the Medabot is complete. In the Kabuto version, you get a set of KBT parts and a Kabuto medal, forming Metal Beetle or Metabi for short. In the Kuwagata version, you get a set of KWG parts, forming Head Scissors, also known as Rokusho. Now you're ready to take on the world. Just from the first minutes, you can tell that Medarot 2 is a noticeable improvement over its predecessor. The addition of dialogue portraits and a greater amount of text goes a long way into making the characters feel like actual characters with personality and gives the player some direction rather than having to go to places just because that's where the game wants you to go next, which were two of the problems with Medarot 1. Perfect Edition alleviated this a bit, but Medarot 2 goes above that. You've got Erika, the pushy friend who probably ingests too much caffeine, Karin, the gentle but frail girl, Koji, the rifle character who might be just a bit overprotective of Karin, and many others. The Rubber gang is back to their evil ways, and for some reason the grunts have a new uniform. The menus are also faster and cleaner, and the Medabots sprites have been revamped to look a lot more appealing. Being in color also helps, and there's even a paint shop that allows you to change your Medabots' color instead of it being dictated by the head. The battle graphics use the same layout, but with a bit more flair. Battles are still a bit slower than how I would have liked them though. The gameplay has also received a couple of changes. The first is how proficiencies grow. These determine how well a Medabot can use the various types of parts. In Medarot 1, they were tied to the medal's level, but now they raise by using the appropriate part type in battle. It's similar to the system used in games such as the Elder Scrolls series and Final Fantasy II. If you use shooting parts, your shooting proficiency will increase. If you use support parts, your support proficiency will increase, and so on. With enough practice, any medal can become good at using any part. This is especially useful early on when you only have 2 or 3 medals. You can repurpose support-oriented medals into combat-capable ones or vice versa, giving the player some flexibility in team building. Medaforce was also introduced in this game. Each medal can learn up to 3, and during battle, the Medaforce gauge will rise when taking damage or spending a turn charging up. Once it's high enough, the Medabot can unleash a special move. These can range from simple powerful attacks to support effects of all kinds, of which there are more this time around. Not everything is all sunshine and lollipops though. Armor values in general have been increased, making weapons that can't cause chain reactions a bit more useful. However, at the same time, it seems that the power gap between the good and bad weapons is also wider. Rokusha's hammer is a good example. It's stupidly powerful, accurate enough to not miss most of the time, is capable of chain reactions, and most importantly, you get it right from the start in the Kuwagata version. As a result, the difficulty in general also seems to be noticeably lower, although that still doesn't stop the always fun instant defeats. As far as I can tell, ranged weapons still have the same targeting problems as the first game, that is, they are still a complete crapshoot. Another thing I have to point out is that there are few additions from Perfect Edition that are missing in Medarot 2, even though it was released 2 months later. For example, your partner Medabot doesn't speak anymore, and Medabot HP is back to being displayed in the single bar instead of each part individually. The likely explanation for this is that the games were being developed at the same time by 2 different studios who had their own ideas of what to add to their respective games. And of course there was no communication. One of Medarot 1's biggest strengths was its soundtrack. Medarot 2 follows up on that and surpasses it. The battle theme is a slightly remixed version of the original battle theme, which is alright because it's awesome, but the rest of the music is even better than before. Combined with the improvements in other areas, Medarot 2 as a whole stands quite a bit above the first game, which had good ideas but questionable execution. Imagineer wasn't satisfied with just Medarot 2 being successful, however, and just 3 months after its release, they published another cash grab. Medarot 2 Parts Collection continues the concept started in the original Parts Collection and provides an opportunity to collect all the Medarot 2 parts and medals, as in the parts you can find in Medarot 2 during regular gameplay. The parts and medals from Medarot 1 still have to be traded from there. Like the main game, you play as Iki. Everything has gone back to normal after the events of Medarot 2, but not for long. One day, during class, Iki and his friends noticed something going on outside. It was them. An alien spaceship makes an emergency landing on the school with predictably bad results. It turns out that these aliens came to Earth in order to study the human civilization. Some old man got involved somehow and is shown around the spaceship. However, as he takes a look at the aliens' magical doohickey, he lets out the fart of his life and drops it, causing it to fly all over the place. This causes the space-time continuum to go bananas, and now it's your job to return the world to how it was. What? Did I say something weird? Once again, you go around battling other people and winning all sorts of parts and medals. This parts collection actually had some effort put into it, although I sort of wish it hadn't. In addition to regular battles, you now have some special battles where you have to use the Medabots that the game gives you. Some of them are simple enough, just use the strongest parts and hope you win. The problem here is that some of these battles rely a lot on luck. There is one in particular where you're forced to use transforming parts. These transform into another part at complete random, meaning that you can either get lucky and win easily, or get the short end of the stick and only score useless parts. They also kind of defeat the purpose of collecting parts, don't they? To make things worse, reaching the time limit during these special battles causes an instant loss, unlike regular battles where the game decides the winner based on how much damage each team received, or something close to that. By contrast, the regular battles are almost all extremely easy. You even get the final boss's parts halfway through it. In November of 2002, the game's remake, Medarot 2 Core, was released in Japan. Wait, what? It was actually first released in Europe? Holy Medaroli. The early 2000s were a strange time for the franchise. In December, a special comic Bonbon edition was available, but the regular Japanese release only came on April of 2003, which was actually 1 month after America saw it on their store shelves. Core keeps the story unchanged, but updates the gameplay and visuals. Battles have received some serious rebalancing, with armor values having been dialed back, movement types actually make a difference, and weapons that cause chain reactions aren't the end-all be-all anymore. You can now also see which part your attacks will target, and there's even a name command that tells you what your Medabot aims for, shedding some more light on how in the unholy name of hack the targeting system even works. The game as a whole is much harder, especially early on in the Kuwagata/Rokusho version. While Rokusha's hammer is still very powerful, it has accuracy issues and only 20 armor, leaving it prone to being easily destroyed by pretty much anything. Given that Rokusho's only other weapon is his sword, it's easy for him to become a sitting duck without a second and third Medabot to cover for him. Metabi has a much easier time on the early parts of the game, since his head missiles are likely to be destroyed last. There's also a very clear upgrade when it comes to graphics. The Medabots actually run around and beat the mechanical living out of each other now. The series experimented with animated sprites in Medarot Navi, the previous Game Boy Advance game, but it's in this title that it got fully developed. There are recycled animations and some weird rotations going on, but it's nice watching your customized abomination doing its thing. The music got a good revamp too. I'd probably pick the original versions of some tracks over the remake's versions, but they nailed the battle theme so it gets a passing grade. The English release also uses the English anime theme, and in surprisingly good quality. These remakes were my entry point into the series. If you're interested in trying out the franchise, this is probably the best place to start. If you're not interested in the franchise, consider giving them a try anyway, since they are some of the most unique RPGs on the Game Boy Advance. Finally, a reminder that Medarot Classics, a compilation of the first 5 mainline Medarot games, was released on the 21st of this very month. Naturally, it includes Medarot 2, but also Medarot 3 and 4, which continue Iki's adventures, but those will have to wait for another day. Oh yeah, and have a happy new year. See you in 2018!